This is part two. Alright, I'm making this video to basically detail my whole spiritual warfare battle and what's going on with Jennifer Pastor right now. Because everything that I'm saying, I can absolutely prove, and other people that I've gone to for help can prove that the forehead stone does exist. And the only reason why she didn't even know what it was is because when Bastille Morris returned it, it was in the back of my head. So it was when I was telling somebody that I know about the forehead stone, then she figured out it was in my forehead, and then she sent LeBron to Montrose to get the rest of the giftings off of me. So what happened was in 2015, I hadn't been to Jamaica. Actually, 2014, my grandfather died, and I hadn't been to Jamaica sorry, I have my face is disfigured because of I was wearing Invisalign for 6 months, so now it's kind of hard for me to talk because my mouth doesn't open properly. It's kind of like twisted to the side. But 2014, I hadn't been to Jamaica. At that time, I was 36, I want to say. I hadn't been to Jamaica since I was 15. But my grandfather died, and I had to go to the funeral, and I went. The next year, 2015, my grandmother died. And I had promised her that I was going to do her eulogy. So even though I didn't want to go, and actually the night when I was supposed to go, I remember I was in the Barnard Library talking to my sister. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning, and my flight was, I think, 7. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'm saying, okay, something is saying don't go. Like, there's a spirit saying don't go. And she said, I feel the same way too. I don't want to go. I feel like something is going to happen. I want to go. And I called my uncle, and I told him, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to give the eulogy to my sister, and my sister could do the eulogy. And he said, no, come and, you promised your grandmother that you're going to do the eulogy. You have to come and do the eulogy. All right. I went and I did the eulogy, and it was a lot of strange things happened during the time when I was there. Just very strange, like spiritual things, that everybody else was experiencing too. But on the day when I was leaving, my cousin, she was always, we were raised Christian. We were definitely raised Christian, went to church almost every Sunday. We never missed church, and we had devotions in school. And, but she was always to the left, like always going outside of what we were raised in. So before I even went to Jamaica in 2014, I remember in 2010, someone had come from Jamaica to help my sister take care of her son. And I saw a picture. I hadn't seen, my cousin in years since I left Jamaica, since I was a kid. And I saw a picture of her, and the first thing that, it just popped out of my mouth was, oh my gosh, she looks so evil. Like whatever she was doing, it showed on her face. And when I saw the picture, that was my initial reaction. Oh my God, she looks so evil. So I should have known, to avoid her, stay away from her. But the way that she got me, I wasn't even expecting. It wasn't until after, telling my story to other people, then I realized, and I find out, oh yeah, people could take money from your hand if you're the last one to touch it and do witchcraft with it. So when I was leaving the Monday, she comes up and she says, she asked me for some money, and I said, I'll send it to you when I'll Western Union it to you when I get back home. She said, no, I need it, I need it to use tomorrow. I need it. I needed to do something. So I was like, okay, my suitcase is like way in the back of the van and my stuff is already packed up. She was like, I needed to buy something tomorrow. So I was like, okay, I went and I searched through my suitcase, found the money, gave it to her. Didn't think anything of it, and left and came back to Manhattan. And then we came back on Monday. Tuesday, I was like very out of it because I missed my grandmother. I was very close to my grandmother. I mean, I think she is the person that loved me the most. I was always very close with her. So very, Tuesday I didn't want to really interact with anybody. And Wednesday comes around, and since I'm a writer, I usually go to the library at Columbia to write. In the SEPA library. That's where I've been writing for months, developing this sketch comedy show. But in the last weeks, something was happening. Like every time I would put down my USB drive, I can't find it. If I had it in my pocket, I would check my pocket, it's not there. If I had it in my briefcase, check my briefcase, it's not there. So the Wednesday morning, I'm looking for the drive, I'm like looking for it. Because the last time I saw it was maybe like a week before when I left for Jamaica. So I'm looking for the drive and I can't find it. And I finally find it when I picked it up. I was so frustrated, because I really didn't want to be a writer. Writing was just something that came naturally to me that I've been doing since I was 12. It was just something, a gift. Now that I, know about spiritual gifting, it's actually a gift. But I always wanted to practice law. That's what I wanted to do, go into the legal field. And when I found it, it was in my pocket, and I remember I was standing by the window and I made to, throw it out the window out of frustration, and I was about to leave to go to the library, and strange enough, just very strange, this person that I knew, years before, which I always call her my better half. Like when you meet somebody and there's like this thing there where it's like, okay, that's different. There's just something different about this person. Like, it's like we've known each other our entire lives. And I get ready to leave, and her voice, just hear her voice. I wasn't even thinking about her. I hadn't thought about her in I don't know how long. And she says, why are you going to the library to be around those kids? Because she's a professional, she's not in a library around, students, undergrads and grad students. She's not doing any of that. So she says, why are you going to the library to be around those kids? Like I should be doing something different. I didn't pay attention to it. I just went to the library. But that was one warning. When my grandmother was still in a coma, before she had died, at the time I was having this back and forth with this grad student, this back and forth with him. We weren't getting along, that type of thing. And, spoke to the head of the library about harassment. And so my grandmother was in a coma, and she says one day, I don't remember where I was. I think I was outside of the library, like in the smoking area. And she says, don't go back there. And I said to her in patois, I said, Mama, I'm not afraid of him, meaning I'm not afraid of him. And she says, you don't know what people can do, meaning you don't know what people could do. She was warning me not to go back to the library. But that was 2 weeks before she died. She died, we had the funeral. So within those 3 weeks, I had forgotten, what she had told me, not to go back there. In the spirit, in like her spirit talking to my spirit, not to go back there. So that was the second warning. So I go to the library and I can't write. I mean, this is in the afternoon. I can't write. I'm thinking about my grandmother, and I just get up and I walk out. And I think it was about 10 minutes because I just got to the door of the library. I stepped outside, and I tapped my back pocket, and I was like, oh my god, my USB drive, because whenever I'm writing in the library, if I go to the bathroom, I take it, and this is how I messed up because the my process of writing is, you know, if I'm working on a project, I don't know what I'm gonna be working on, but I made like a really bad mistake. I should have like not have everything that I've written on one drive and be walking around with it, because the drive had like 2 volumes of poetry that I wrote, I think between 20 and 24. The novel that was for my other grandmother. Um, so many movie scripts, sketch comedy, half-hour series, comedy series, just a lot of stuff on there. So I go back into the library and the drive is gone. And there's like 7 people in there, and a couple of them I was familiar with, and there was a kid, that me and him were not getting along, and then there's this other guy that I know. So where the other guy that I know, where he was sitting, if anybody had gone to my terminal where I was sitting, he would have seen it. And okay, excuse me. So the drive is gone. One second. So at that point, I mean, I have no idea what to do at that point. So I go to the head of the library again because he's always in his office. It's like, okay, well, my USB drive is gone. The kid is in the library. I don't know anybody else in there. I mean, like, not having issues with anybody else. He's the only one that would have reason to take my USB drive, right? So he says, okay, call public safety. And I call public safety. They come. They question the kid. He's like, he didn't take it. I'm like, come on, people leave drives all the time in the library. You go to the library sometimes, people forget stuff. Nobody's touching anybody's stuff. Nobody cares. If somebody finds something, like if the library is full and there's a drive, all anyone is going to do is either bring it to the front desk or just put it at the same terminal, and whoever left it could come back and get it. But my drive in 10 minutes was completely gone. And okay, he said he didn't take it. So public safety, I was like, okay, well, I want to call NYPD because I'm not saying classwork is missing or like a paper is missing. These are valuable scripts, and it's my work that I've been doing, for all these years. At that point, over 17 years on one USB drive. So I was like, oh my God, this is just impossible to deal with. So that was the Wednesday. So Thursday, I go into the kitchen. You notice I come back from Jamaica and all these things are starting to happen. I go into the kitchen, because as soon as I came back, whenever I would go to bed, I would feel something touching me. I'm like, that's weird. There's nobody there, but there's something touching me. And I was like, okay, someone recommended that I, burn sage to get rid of whatever spirits were there. Spirits. Can you imagine? 37, and now I'm dealing with spirits. So I buy the sage, and when I was growing up, like my mom, like at certain times, like she used to burn frankincense and myrrh in the house. So I light the sage because the person recommended sage. So I light the sage, not really I haven't done this ever in my life before, you know. So I light the sage, and then I remembered, oh, you know, the way my mom did it, you're supposed to light it and then leave the space. So I remembered, and as soon as the smoke went up from, the sage, that sage bunched up, whatever, the dry sage, I just felt something grab my wrist, like both wrists. Something just grabbed, like there was a person there, just grabbed my wrist. Just both of them, just grabbed them. And I was like, oh my God. So I dropped the sage in the sink, and I turned the water on, and I'm running to my bedroom to grab my key because I want to get outside. Grab my key, run to the front door, and whap! As soon as my hand touched the doorknob, that thing just smacked me so hard. Like all my teeth were loose, and I get on the train, and I'm in Manhattan, so I'm going to my parents' house in the Bronx. But it's still following me. It's still there with me when I get to the Bronx to my parents' house. I'm like, how is this possible? And that's when my mom said that if it followed you from Manhattan to here, that means somebody has set it there for you. I'm like, what does that mean? I mean, and why is it following me? She's like, somebody put it there for you. So I was like, okay, how do I get rid of it? So we called my cousin, and she was saying, okay, you have to come back to take it off. I want to go back to Jamaica. I don't have anything left in Jamaica. Both of my grandparents are dead. So at that first night, I mean, we were so, I was so scared. Stayed up the entire night praying and reading the Bible and playing gospel songs, because I'm like, okay, this thing hit me in my head. There's nothing there. It hit me so hard that all my teeth are loose. What's going to happen? So that was a Thursday. And she says, the Friday, she says, okay, you have to come back to Jamaica. But one of my because at that, no one in my family knew what to do. And I can't believe my parents didn't even know, because they lived in Jamaica until they were in their 20s. So it doesn't make any sense. So, one of my sister's friends were saying, go see a priest. And that's when my cousin said, a priest can't, what is a priest going to do for you? A priest can't, you have to come back to take it off. So that's how the whole Jamaica saga started. Went back to Jamaica the Saturday. They took me to see this man. I guess he's like a roots doctor or whatever he was. And he gave me some stuff. I was like, okay, that's it. And I was like, okay, I'm going back. So I left that same night. I came back to the Bronx. Came back, that stuff did not work. That thing was still there. And I'm like, okay, now I have a huge problem. This thing won't leave. And my parents, they're not suggesting which, looking back, was the only solution, was church. So I kept on making, trip after trip to Jamaica, and this time they're telling me, okay, well, we're going to take you to religious people, church people. It's like, okay, you're going to see some church people and get rid of this thing. Turns out that the people that they took me to see, even though they go to church and they call themselves, spiritual, that, these people are practicing witchcraft. And it wasn't until, there were one person that I was speaking to, made a offer to come and work with him. It's like, what are you talking about? And, talking about a spiritual gift. Mind you, I didn't know anything about a spiritual gift before then, before whatever was happening. I'm like, what spiritual gift? I'm just like, whatever. I don't know anything about any spiritual gift. So, now we're in November. And that's when I saw Yvonne. She said that she's a spiritualist, and I come back, and This woman is just bleeding me dry, just bleeding me dry, bleeding me dry. And nothing is getting better, everything is getting worse. And at the same time, I'm working with Morrison, you know. And one day, I was like, okay, I'm talking to him about something, you know. I don't remember what we were talking about. And the conversation ended, and I said, wait a minute, why do I feel like I'm having feelings for this person? Because that's not even possible. That's never happened in my life. I've never looked at a man twice, you know, never. Because I came, you know, accepted that I was gay in my 20s. At that time I was 37. I wasn't in the closet for anybody. So, you know, we started butting heads. And I remember one day I was walking in the rain in Bronxville. I'm like, this man is doing something that he shouldn't be doing. And, you know, I remember the conversation I had with him. I was like, the only man I'm interested in is Jesus Christ. And you could tell that he was offended, you know, like somebody had hurt his feelings, you know, like somebody just poured rain on your sunshine. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. I never gave you any kind of impression that I even liked you, because you're a guy, you're a man. I don't go there. So that whole situation ended, you know, because he was giving me the runaround. The whole situation ended right there. And a couple of months after that, because now they have turned on me, you know, both of them completely turned on me. It was like bedlam everywhere. Everywhere was like everything is coming at me, you know. Because, you know, Morris was saying, oh, when the first conversation I had with him, he was like, anybody could see that you're special, like you have something special about you. Even if you were homeless on the street, you know, people could see that you have something special about you, like you have a special gift. And he said there's only 1 in 10 people who have the gift. I was like, okay, again, I don't know about this gift, you know. First I'm hearing about a gift. And then ended all communication with them in 2015. And then, you know, started going to church. But everything was still getting in. Because Morris had done something where before, like, I had like a protection, you know, and he had done something to move everything, where everything that he was doing was still getting through to me. Still getting through to me. And even though I'm going to church and I'm telling the pastor, this stuff is still happening, man. This stuff is still happening. Everything is still getting through. You know, I'm saved. You know, how is this possible? And they would come to my apartment and, you know, they're like, okay, how can you even live in here? The amount of demonic forces that's in here. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Because it's going to follow me wherever I go anyways. So that kept on happening until 2017. I had gone to a different church, and one of the sisters, she recommended I start listening to T.D. Jakes. You know, started listening to T.D. Jakes, and plus I was going to another church for deliverance, like special deliverance during the week. And one of the pastors had decided, okay, well, he's going to be my spiritual father. And when he was covering me, I mean, absolutely nothing could get through. And I remember the day when he told me, okay, well, his job was over and he wasn't going to be covering me anymore. Like the very next morning, everything came back. Everything was getting back in. So, still under attack. 2017, 2018, you know, just moving from here to there. So listening to T.D. Jakes, like every day, like, because his sermons were that good. And in my 20s, and I didn't even get to like my relationship with God, and maybe I should talk about that right now. You know, started going to church before I could read. Before I could read, my grandmother started taking us to church. And uh, when I left Jamaica when I was 11 and I came to the Bronx, we didn't go to church. My mother didn't make us go to church. But then when I was 17, when I joined the army, they gave us Bibles. And then that's when I started reading the Bible again. And then, would start reading the Bible every day when I was in college, every day before I went to class. Every day. Just start reading the Psalms. Like, really like the Psalms. Start reading the Psalms. And one day, I think I was on the train, reading the Psalms and everything. And it says, okay, Jesus is on God's right hand. And he's in the middle. Okay. Jesus is on his right hand. So I said to myself, okay, who's on his left? The Bible doesn't say anything about anyone being on the left. And I'm just starting to read the Bible again after reading it as a kid and going to church. So I said, can I have that seat? Asking for that seat. And left it at that. But, around 19 or 20, I remember I think I was 19 when Mother Teresa died. And I immediately wanted to be a nun because the lifestyle, like she only had 3 outfits and 2 pairs of shoes, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I want. That's a life for me. I like simplicity. And kept on persisting, and it was just not for me. So, but reading my Bible constantly, even though I'm not going to church, reading my Bible constantly and talking to God. And then when I was 22, I had graduated college early, and just went on a whole, like, there was a pull, like something was just pulling me to church. And no one in my household went to church, but I decided I'm going to church. I'm starting going to church, and I started going to so many different churches looking for a home church. And then next thing you know, my sister is going to church, my mom is going to church, and I just have this connection with God, but not at the same time not really understanding certain things, because there were times when I would get mad at God, like if I asked for something and I didn't get it, or something impossible didn't happen, I would get mad. But around, I want to say around 25, 26, I had this falling out with my parents because I didn't go back to law school for my last year of law school. I didn't go back for that. And that's when, I no longer existed. And then that's when God took me in, because at that point, he was all I had. And then Psalm 27 became my favorite psalm. When your father and your mother forsake you, then the Lord will take you up. So it was just me and him. And when I left the house, after my sisters left, actually, me and him, he's all I had, because I didn't have anything. Constantly just me and him. And all my peers were, they were off practicing law. Nobody's like, I don't know what's going on with you, but that's not good. Because my life at that point just completely derailed, like jumped the tracks. Like nothing is working out, absolutely nothing. It didn't make sense. It was like, everything was always easy for me. Everything was like, never had like a bad, I had struggles, like, because I didn't grow up in money, but like not having money didn't bother me, because there are certain things I remember when I just started college, and we had tokens back then for the train, and if someone, I would take the train to school, take the subway, and if someone came on the train, I would just give. And one night I had 15 cents, and this man comes on the train and he says, he's begging, he's asking for spare change, and I reach into my pocket without even thinking it, and I give him the 15 cents. And it was after I was like, oh no, a token is $1.50. I could have really made that up to get a token for school tomorrow. How am I gonna get to school? And tomorrow comes the next day, And my father, he always drove to work. And I don't know what happened that morning. But he woke my brother up to drive him to school. And he had an extra token. And he's like, Debbie, do you want it? And I was like, yes. So I gave the man 15 cents. The token is $1.50. I got the 15 cents tenfold. The very next morning, the exact thing that I wanted the 15 cents to go towards, I get the token for school. So that's what I talk about, like my relationship with God. Um, yeah, so 26, 27, 28, just me and him. I'm really struggling then. Because something is just not right. I don't know what it is, something is not right. But I start writing my first novel, because I had finished 2 volumes of poetry between undergrad and when I was in law school. And that was another thing. When I was in law school, even though I was studying, writing was something that I still had to make time for. If I didn't do it, it was just something that would just build up. And then I would just have to sit down for hours and just like regurgitate and just get everything out. It was that intense. And then go back to studying. So I was always writing. And then at that time, started listening to Dr. Stanley. And I really like Dr. Stanley because, he's not yelling and carrying on. He's just giving you the word. Straight, the word, that's it. So I was listening to him for like 12 years. Sometimes I couldn't even wait until Sunday to hear his sermons. Whenever they post them on Saturday, I would go get them and listen to them. So listen to Dr. Stanley and then having this relationship with God, because the years are passing and nothing is working, but I'm still writing, still working on the novel. And one day I had gone home in the afternoon to take a nap and had this dream. This woman, she comes to me and she says, my sister took my 4 kids. Tell my story. I mean, she was like very desperate. Tell my story. My sister took my 4 kids, and I think she was naming the kids. And then the next part of the dream, I see a book, and the book is like turning. The pages of the book, they're turning, but the pages are blank. And then the book closes, and I see the title of the book. But because at that time I really didn't want to write, I wanted to do something else. I wanted to like practice law. I said, I'm not writing anything, And then I started asking people in my family about who had 4 kids, and and then my uncle tells me, yeah, your grandmother, meaning my mom, his sister, she had 4 kids, and she died very young. And it was 4 of them, and her sister raised her kids. So I said, well, she's not very happy about it. Whatever happened, it doesn't sound right, because she's saying her sister took her 4 kids. So how did she die? I mean, it was just some sordid family, I guess, I don't know. But it was her telling me to tell her story. So, worked on a novel and eventually started going back into law. Not as an attorney, but as a paralegal. And not really writing as much. And then I had another dream where I'm like in a mess hall, a military mess hall, and there were 2 soldiers, and one of them says, 2 guys talking to each other. One says, there she is, there's the writer, go tell her your story. And the other guy was like, man, she doesn't do that anymore, And then years later, I'm working on my friend's, his name is Johnny, supposed to be working on his screenplay about what happened to him in Vietnam. And I was like, oh my God, you're the man from the dream. I had a dream about you like many, many years ago. And he was so surprised. But but in between that time, again, it was just me and God. Because when people had friends or People could go to work and, interact with people. Yeah, I interacted with people, but I'm a very, like, reserved person. And it went back all the way till I started to notice that, like, around, I think it was sixth grade, when I was 11, I started needed to be by myself. I needed to go off, be away from everybody else, and just think. I don't know about what, but I needed to go think. And then starting to be like a bit like different from my sisters, because I have two sisters, one older, one younger, and of course, like, two other younger sisters that came later, but grew up with those two, and just very different from them. And I remember when I was 16, I was saying to my mother, that, don't you notice that there's something different from my sisters? And she said, no, you're the same as them. But at the same time, they could go out and have fun, and I would stay home, watch PBS, because I was searching for knowledge. And when I was 16, I saw the commercial that, knowledge comes with age. And I almost broke the TV because I wanted to know things then. Just wanted to know things then. Sorry, there's a lot taken on right now. A lot going on right now. Yeah, so, late 20s, going into my 30s, just, not really. I have friends. Yeah, I have friends, that writer friends, that I interact with from Colombia, but I had to keep the Sabbath, with God, even though, sometimes I would get frustrated and I would say, I don't want to write. And when I would complain, he's God. He could shut me down. I remember he did that, I think, twice, if I'm accurate. I complained about something, was ungrateful about something. It's like, this is too much work. Too much stuff is coming at me. And then he would just, the next day I would get up, all the ideas would be gone. So, just me and him again. And then, I think it was around early 30s. I didn't have a TV. I was broke. And all I did was I would write all day. I would go home, and then I would just read the Bible, just be with God. And then one day I was walking across campus. I was on College Walk, and there was this feeling. I have never felt it before. I never felt it again. It was like something had happened. Like some people call it, in the church they call it something different, but I've never felt anything like that. I don't know what it was, but that feeling was there. Like, I would have, gone to heaven right there and then, if I could. Just wanting to be with him. And I was noticing too, like, I would ask for little things, and he would give it to me. Little things. I wasn't asking for a lot, like, just little things, and he would give it to me. And, when I met the person who I consider my better half, or when I met her, the first time I met her, I said, when I left her, I said, God, I want one like her. Because when I found out that I was gay, I was like, yay! Because I didn't date in my 20s. My sisters dated, but all I did was study. That's it. Study, make straight A's, read the Bible. That's it. Watch TV. No, I didn't date anybody in undergrad, because, again, I wanted to be a nun. And when I found out I was gay, I was like, oh, yes. And that, I remember I went home and I was telling my sisters, and my sister was laughing. She was laughing her ass off. What? She called my other sister like, oh, Debbie's gay now. And my other sister just looked like, because I was so happy, because before I thought, okay, well, what's going on here? I don't like him. I don't like her. at least this is something. And then that only lasted for a little bit because, okay, this goes against the Bible. What about my relationship with God? So I was back to square one, And I remember saying, okay, I'm not going to date. And I remember crying, crying to God, talking to God and saying to him, I can change. I can change. I know I can change. And I didn't date anybody. I had people who were interested or, people on campus or whatever, because that's where I used to go to write, but not really dating anybody. And I remember when I met this person, I said, no, I don't date. But when I left her, I said to God, I want one like her. And then when I saw her the second time, I was like, oh my God, it's her. She's the one. So little things like that. Little things like that. But even though I'm writing and doing the whole legal thing, I'm not really putting in any effort, to get the work out. We just write stuff and put them on a USB drive and that's it. Yeah. And when I did start to work on it, I would run into crazy things. Like two guys said, okay, well, if you want me to pass your script off, you have to sleep with me. Like, huh? No, not doing that. So I wasn't plugged in because I didn't study screenwriting. I studied English literature and law. So this is all, I'm in a different area. So not doing anything with the scripts. And then, again, had this, crying to God in the living room this time. I was just crying and saying, okay, well, I don't want to be a writer. I don't want to be famous, because one of the shows that I was developing, the show was for me, specifically for me, because everything I was writing, all these sketches, even the name, the title, Then There's Debbie. I was like, I don't want to be famous. I don't even use social media. I don't interact with people. I like to be by myself, be quiet, and just write. I'm a writer. And I remember my sister saying, okay, why don't you want to be famous? Who would want to be famous? I said, me. I was saying, if somebody outside of my immediate family knew my first and last names, it's like you knew too much about me. So I didn't want to be a writer. Didn't invest, even though I was doing the work. Didn't invest. So yeah, there's a lot. When I say there's a lot going on in this room right now, a lot. And maybe I should cut to the story of Jennifer Pastor right now, because she is doing a lot. So I'm going to pause right here at 43:11. I'm going to skip up to Jennifer Pastor. All right, so 2018, January 2018. I'm in the library, and writing, listen to T.D. Jakes, because that's how I started to write now. I would listen to a sermon while I'm writing, a sermon or two. And I happened to call my pastor, and I think he called me. I don't remember, but we're talking. And then the Holy Spirit, the voice said, that's not the man I sent you to, meaning the pastor. That's the man, meaning T.D. Jakes. I said, huh? I'm not going all the way to Texas. I'm in New York. How am I supposed to get to T.D. Jakes all the way in Texas, and he doesn't even know me, and I'm supposed to, because at that time the spiritual warfare is still going on. Everything is still getting through. We're in 2018. Everything started in 2015. January 2018, everything is still getting through, touching me. Like, when I say getting through, I would feel, things touching me, and there's nobody there. But I could feel it. And he said, that's the man. And I said, So just kept on listening online. And then listening on YouTube. And then July, I hadn't gone to church. because all this time I'm kind of putting the blame on my grandmother for this stuff happening because it was her funeral that I went to. I didn't see my part in it. And then I'm outside, in Westchester. I hadn't gone to church. Again, I'm listening to TD Jakes on my laptop, and I'm writing, editing a script. And he finishes preaching, and someone was singing. I don't remember his name. He was singing, and I happened to look up at the sky. It's July, not a cloud in the sky. Sky is blue as blue can be. I look up at the sky and I say, God, can't you help me? And then that's when it happened. Saw two lights, a small light and a big light next to it. And I knew the small light was my grandmother, and I knew the big light was God. It's like, oh. And then clear as day, because I never had a vision before in my life, never. It's clear as day. I could see myself, in a white gown. And God is in the middle, but I could only see him like from waist down. And I was laying, to the right on him like this. And because I sat up, and you could tell that I was crying, because I stopped crying and sat up. He was so proud. So he's in the middle. I was leaning on him. I'm on the left. Jesus is on the right. I know he's there, but I can't see him. This is all in a vision. Know he's there, I can't see him. And I see God from the waist down. And I'm sitting at his side. And he was so proud that I stopped crying and I sat up. He put his arm around me. He put his arm around me. And when the vision ended, I could still feel his arm on me, feel his hand, holding my arm. I could still feel it there, because when I saw myself in the vision, because when this whole spiritual warfare stuff started, all my hair fell off. But in the vision, my hair was like really long, like the way it used to be when I was a kid, and in my 20s before stuff started going bad. I was like, wow. And at that time, I was smoking cigars, even though I was in church, and all the people in the church were saying don't smoke cigars. But someone had told me smoke the cigars, and they'll keep them away, not knowing until years later that was only attracting them. I had a cigar in my briefcase, and I took the cigar and I broke it in two, because that wasn't, my spiritual father had taught me that. Like, if you want to, when he was trying to make me help me quit smoking before, like, break it in two. So I break the cigar in two, and I could hear the angels cheering in heaven. Hear the angels cheering. And I said, what is that? So I go to church where I was doing the deliverance, and I tell the pastor about it. And he said it's not good to be on the left, on the left hand of God. That's not good. But I said he was so proud. He was happy. I mean, he put his hand around me and was holding my shoulder. How can that not be good? See, at that time, 2018, I hadn't turned 41 yet. So I was still 40. I didn't remember, that when I was 19 or 20, I had asked him for the seat on the left. Did not remember any of that. That I said, okay, if nobody's there, can I have that seat? And having this close, connected relationship, didn't even realize, because the relationship was strained because of the whole spiritual warfare, and people taking me here, there, wherever, trying to get rid of stuff, taking me outside of what was of his word. And he was angry about that, because he said, I should have known better. I should have known better. So the next week I go to Texas to see TD Jakes. And, they said, the one person that I spoke to, she said, if you got a word in January and it's now August, you waited too long. So I'll come back to New York. And was going back to the same church for deliverance. And it was because of the misinterpretation of the vision, because I didn't understand the vision, didn't appreciate the vision. I mean, how many people can say they've seen God? You know, and everybody that I told about it, they didn't understand the vision. They didn't know that when I was 19, I had asked him for the seat. How is it possible that, God is going to give somebody a seat next to them, but then nobody's going to understand my relationship with him? So, kept on going back to the same church for deliverance, and was asking the pastor to do another mapping. That's what they call it, mapping, because the spiritual warfare is still going on. Everything is still getting through, and my spiritual father, he canceled my appointment. And I was so upset about that. He was like, no, we're not going to do the appointment. That's what he told the pastor, who I was working with. We're not going to do the appointment. And I was so upset about that, because I didn't at the time see it, but now I see it. I was being rejected again. Just like how my parents rejected me when I was in my 20s, over something so simple, not going back to law school. Here was this man who was my spiritual father, don't want to do the deliverance, don't want to do the mapping. So I got really mad about that. I was upset about that. And that's when I stepped out of God's will. Because I went to a church. He had told me before, when I was doing the deliverance at their church, he said, anything that you have to pay for is not good. It's not good. And if you go back into it, it's going to be even worse. He told me specifically. But I didn't remember any of that, because I was so angry. Here's somebody who was my spiritual father. I'm being rejected again. So I just want to get rid of this stuff that's bothering me. I'm just going to go do it. And I went to the church. It's a church. Went to the church and, was asking about, what was this stuff, because in two things that happened. In 2016, I was at the Bronx VA. And it was me and Frank, my friend, and some other guys. No, it was me, Frank, and I think somebody else. And this other vet that Frank knew him, I didn't know him. He comes up to us and, he says, hi, Jamaican girl. Like, how do you know I'm Jamaican? And then he knows all the spiritual warfare. He knows about all the spiritual warfare stuff that's going on. Even though I never spoke to him before, I never saw him a day in my life. So, saw him again, and he's like, oh, you have a cross in your forehead. Like, what cross? Never seen any cross in my forehead. He's like, yeah, you have a cross in your forehead. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the next time I saw him, I was wearing a hat. So he's like, are you wearing the hat to hide your cross? I'm like, look, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see any cross. So that was one. And I think it was maybe 2017. I'm in Manhattan at 125th Street, waiting for the Metro North, smoking a cigar. It's dark. And then this man walks up, and I think he's going to ask me for change. I get ready to give him the change. He said, no, he's not asking for change. I just want to tell you I saw your light. I'm like, what light? It's dark out here. And he's like, you have a light around you. Like, I don't know. I was like, yeah, you have a light around you. And, I know all these people in Jamaica, because he was Hispanic. All these people in Jamaica who's doing all this stuff to you. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take care of him. Because he's talking about Morris. I'm going to take care of him for you. And I said, I said, how do you know that? And he said that he sold his soul. I was completely shocked. And yeah, so that was the two weird incidents. So 2019, I had gone, okay, why is all this going on? And what's this about, being so different? But I didn't do anything just to find out. Not realizing that Morris was, because of whatever spirit he had attached to me, whatever the man was revealing about, whatever the bishop was revealing about my gifts, he was hearing everything and where the thing was located in my forehead. Didn't even realize. But again, fasting and praying, doing the prayer line. Actually, I'm not, yeah, fasting, praying. Probably not fasting that much, but definitely praying and listening to spiritual songs. And, 1 week I had gotten so close to God. I remember I was at the Bronx VA in the chapel praying, because that's where I used to go to pray. And my eyes is closed, I have the music going. All of a sudden, a vision. My eyes are closed. A vision. The room is like, how you'd figure like a chapel would be in daytime, not much light. See myself, it's daytime, my hair is long again, and I'm floating in the sky. I'm floating. And I have on this, this gown is just something else. And I said to myself, oh my God, there's atmosphere in heaven, because I could see my hair blowing. And I was like, wow. But when I went back the next day, and had another vision, I was being judged by the elders. They were saying I had gone out of the church, I had gone out of God's will. Because I went to that other church, to figure out whatever, why was this stuff still going on. By the end of that week, because Morris had started to, I would stand outside and I would, I remember standing on the street and just looking up at the sky, like, wow, admiring God. And he kept on, sticking me in my left eye, like pins, like sticking in my left eye. But like for a week, in that same week, he was like doing something. I didn't know what he was doing until the Friday night. And he waited, both of them, it was Morris and both of them, waited until like around 7. They just started to tear the center of my forehead, just rip and tear. And I start calling everybody. Like, this man is trying to kill me. Whatever he's trying to take out of my forehead, he's going to kill me. And I walked Manhattan the entire night. Mind you, this started at 7:30, because they deliberately waited to do it at night when there wouldn't be anybody to help me. So I walked Manhattan. I think I walked all the way from 114th all the way to 14th Street, crying and calling everybody all night. And then the Saturday morning, I hadn't slept. Went home and I was talking to, another pastor, and I was like, my head was like, like solid concrete, and then somebody comes in with like a drill and just, digs it up. That's what my head felt like. And right now, pastor is, doing a lot to stop me from talking, because she's determined that she's going to kill me. And this video is going up regardless. So, yeah, so my forehead just felt like, somebody had dug up concrete. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And that night I had gone home, I was telling my mother that I was going to stay up all night and tarry. And when I said that, it was like, oh, whatever spirits they have on me, when I say certain things, if they don't like it, the spirits get stirred up. I was asleep in a half an hour. And it was Sunday morning when I woke up. I sat up, I didn't know what to do with myself. I know that I was supposed to do something, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I sat there for like 15 minutes to a half an hour. Like, what am I supposed to do? I could tell something, a part of me, a crucial part of me was gone. So even though they, was ripping it out Friday night, they didn't take it out until Saturday night when I was sleeping. And then that's when I started to figure out his process. Like whenever he would take anything, he would wait until I was asleep. So previously to them taking the stone, he started to tap into the gift while I'm asleep. I would go to sleep and, I'm seeing all these triangles, like different triangles, symbols, and circles. Like, wait a minute. Aren't those, Illuminati symbols? Why am I seeing them and something just went off when I say it, because I'm going to go into that later. Why am I seeing all of that? In my sleep, this man is tapping into the gift, into whatever gift I have. He's tapping it into it. He's using it. Not only using it, he's using it to find out about my role in heaven. Because one of the dreams when he tapped into it, I say, okay, there was some kind of battle going on, and I come off the battlefield. You could hear the that there's a battle. You could hear it, just like in the army, if there's something going on, or a war zone, you could hear it. So I hear that, but I come off like into a holding area, and I say, there is other people, there are other angels in white, and I say, walking real fast, determined, and I say to her, tell my father to send the guards. And she takes off, and I go to change, but I start speaking in tongues. But now I don't speak in tongues, but in the dream I'm speaking in tongues. And just because I started speaking in tongues and he couldn't understand what I was saying, he just squishes the dream, and I wake up. And then another dream when he tapped in was looking into the future, where I say, I had gotten myself back together, and I was saying to this man, I was like in a meeting, I want to buy the property in Beverly Hills for $35 million. Once I said that, boom, he squishes the dream again. And I said, I gone to the church, I said, this man is tapping into my gifts to do nonsense, and not only do nonsense, but look into other people's lives, So the stone, the thing is gone. I don't know what to do, but at night I would go to sleep, and I could see what it's being used for. Like, looking into celebrities' life. Like, I'm into academia and writing and all that stuff. I don't follow social media. I mean, I might know people's names, but I that's not my thing. But he's using it to look into, really look into Kim Kardashian's life, and, one time, someone was using it to, this is in the 2 weeks when it was gone, to write a song for Beyonce. Like, I don't even write songs.